Why can't art be a part of worship? Why can't fashion be a part of art?
Cattle Call Podcast. Happy Sunday. How are you?
I'm great.
Do you want to introduce yourself or do you want me to introduce yourself?
You can.
Mary Gabrielle Martinez.
The one and only.
Mary And so we call you Gabby. May call you Mary. May call you Gabrielle. May call you Mary Gabrielle.
All is great.
Okay, so whatever comes out, you just have to acknowledge it. Mary, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. In the nice 40-something degrees now outside.
Yes, the sun is setting. It's freezing.
Yeah, it is freezing. It is cold. Have a nice cold drink to keep you nice and cold. And we're here in historic Columbia, Tennessee, one of the greatest towns of the South.
Oh, yes.
Isn't this place win awards? Aren't you from here?
I'm actually from Franklin.
Oh.
But, they're the same.
But you like hanging out in Columbia?
Yeah, Columbia is great. I don't know much about Columbia, but the time I've spent here has been amazing.
Very good. All right, Mary, let's learn about you a little bit. So you said you're from Franklin.
I'm from Franklin.
Okay, now where is Franklin for those that don't know?
Franklin is southwest of Nashville, about 15 miles.
Okay.
And I guess you would consider it a small town, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's historic.
Mm-hmm. Historic
Franklin. Downtown Franklin won lots of awards. It's a great place.
Yeah, it is. It's not a bad town at all. Civil War town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot about it. This whole area is full of Civil War. Like Columbia had some stuff. Pulaski, which is just south of here, had some stuff. But it's cool because you go around parts of Franklin, Spring Hill, Columbia, which are, if you don't know, they're all in kind of a line running north to south. And there's all these battlefields and houses and plantation homes and stuff like that in this whole area. So it's very historic. And are you from Franklin originally?
Pretty much. I was born in Nashville and have lived in Franklin since the 4th grade.
Since the 4th grade. And you don't live in Franklin anymore, though.
I don't.
Where do you live now?
I live in New York City, the greatest city on the planet.
Amen.
And I live in Manhattan in Union Square.
Okay. And why do you say Manhattan, for those that don't know, instead of New York City?
Because there's 5 boroughs.
Okay. And what are they?
Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island.
And you're in Manhattan, which
I'm
is
in
like
Manhattan,
when people
which
think
is
New York.
New York. With all the tall buildings, all the people normally pre-COVID. And it's great. It's been my dream forever, so I'm very blessed.
And what do you do in New York?
I am a handbag designer and illustrator.
You're a handbag designer and illustrator.
And illustrator is on the side, but my day job is a handbag designer.
For who?
For Steve Madden.
For Steve Madden. And what were you doing? Okay, we can talk about Steve Madden in a minute.
Okay.
But what were you doing before Steve Madden? Who were you working for?
So after college, I went to Mississippi State. Well, I graduated from Mississippi State, and I studied fashion design and merchandising, and knew from freshman year of high school that I'd be moving to New York because I wanted to do fashion. And so after I graduated, I got this amazing opportunity to work as a handbag apprentice for Kate Spade.
Okay.
And I did that for a year, and then, which is a whole story in itself, but after that, I went to Tory Burch and was an assistant shoe designer until COVID hit. And then I got laid off, and thankfully, a few months later, I got a new position as an associate handbag designer at Steve Madden.
Okay, so you're doing handbags at Kate Spade.
I was doing handbags at Kate Spade.
Uh-huh.
Then I jumped to do footwear at Tory Burch. Accessories are similar. Like, it's not like clothes where you're fitting on a body. So I was able to translate my skills into both areas. Okay. And I didn't study accessories. Normally people study that. I just got very blessed to get this apprenticeship to learn. And yeah, so now I'm back doing handbags, which is what I started off doing, and I love it. I love accessories. I never thought I would do that. I assumed I would be designing dresses or anything of that nature, but it's great.
So are shoes not an accessory?
It is.
It is under accessories?
technically,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a little different.
Okay, so why do you like handbags better?
I like them because they're a 3D object. I like that there's more sculpture and architecture, if you would say that, involved. As far as you're not fitting it on a body, and you can have different shapes and materials, and it really, to get girly, like it really makes the outfit your bag, and it's very personal, and I like that aspect of it.
Okay. A clutch.
A clutch.
Is that considered a purse?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know what a clutch is? Do you know what it looks like?
It's like a big wallet, right?
Yeah, that's
it's like
yeah.
Okay,
That's
but
it.
it is considered a purse. Because I've seen it, like, that's all I know is purse and clutch. Is there more to handbags than purse and clutch?
I mean, yeah, purse and handbag can be, I guess,
synonymous?
Twained, yeah.
Okay.
But I say handbag because that's what my position says.
Handbag. Okay, so you went Kate Spade, Tory Burch, and Steve Madden. Have all three places had like a similar feel because they're similar industry, or like completely different atmospheres, environments, workplace, culture? I mean, how'd you describe them?
Kate Spade was my dream job coming out of school, and the kind of job that you talk about forever, and people are like, yeah, okay, like, you're never going to get there. And so I did a lot of research going before, and it's very girly, and the office is very, I would say 95% women, and led by women, like CEO and head designer and all of that were women, which is pretty unusual even in fashion to have that kind of leadership, which is really cool. And so I was really drawn by that, and then drawn by their corporate responsibility as far as giving back to, there's people that they work with in Rwanda, actually a factory.
Oh, yeah?
They call it On Purpose, or did at the time, where, they'd have these women in the village where they would get to learn a trade and then make the bags. So anyways, I really liked all of that and how they were incorporating good things with their company. And then just the corporate culture in general. I mean, fashion has a stereotype of being like the Devil Wears Prada, which honestly is not too far off. But at Kate Spade, it seemed to be a little bit different. It seemed to be more kind and, really focusing on their employees in a good way. But as soon as I jumped in, working at Kate Spade, they had been bought by Coach, actually. So a lot of their corporate standards and everything had changed. Okay. So I walked into one company for about a few months, and then whenever they got bought by Coach, things got different. Not bad, not worth, not good, not better, but the corporate environment changed a lot. But yeah.
So Kate Spade's owned by Coach? It's
owned by, which is now called Tapestry, like the company.
Oh, wow.
It's called Tapestry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the corporate environment's great. They would have speakers come in, like authors and books and different like spiritual people. Like they would bring in yoga teachers, and they had a really cool environment, and it was, like I said, like very inspiring and girly, and I loved it.
And I guess, what do you miss most about that environment now that you've been out of it in other companies?
I have always looked up to Kate Spade herself, and so it just seemed like such an inspirational place where I thought I wouldn't be able to work there at such a young age. And so the whole time I was there, it just felt like a dream or a movie where I was like, I cannot believe, these bags that I've been watching on the runway or, in magazines and stuff. Like, I can't believe I get to be and learn from the designers like themselves and just be a part of the team. And so I kind of miss being around that I looked up to them so much, and I looked up to my manager so much, and just, being around product that is really me. Like, I mean, your listeners can't see what I look like, but I feel like Kate Spade probably is best aligned to my own style. So it was really fun to work on a lot of those products.
How would you define your style?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say I'm pretty feminine. And yeah.
Okay.
I like dresses.
What does that mean? Okay. Gotcha.
Dresses and fun clothes, like bright clothes. But then, I don't know, classic. I don't know. Yeah. That's like a hard question to answer.
Yeah. I mean, see, women not just women, I'm going to say that. People in general don't dress up like they used to.
They don't. And I love dressing up.
Yeah. So now you're in like a perfect position for it. Why don't people when you look at the shift, like you look at the 50s and 60s,
Mm-hmm.
we start flying on airplanes, commercial jetliners.
And people dressed up.
People are in suits and dresses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now I was on a plane, you know, a week or two ago. You're going to be on a plane here in about a week. I mean, people that are wearing like sweatpants.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I will say it was insanely expensive to fly then, so only the rich people would fly mainly. So I think that has something to do with it. And then just our culture has changed. Like, you know, even going to work, I would wear jeans to Kate Spade, and that would have been totally not okay. You know, even 20 years ago, I think just our culture in general have gotten much more casual.
Is there pressure to like look a certain way when you go to work at a place that works in fashion?
Yeah, I would say there is, but I mean, we all love it. Like, it's like something that we're super passionate about, and it's not. It really, to me, it didn't seem like the Devil Wears Prada where people were like, oh my gosh, she's wearing last year's Prada. Like, no, it wasn't like that for me. But I do think that they encourage you to really show off your style and, you know, wear things that you like. I wouldn't have to look full head to toe Kate Spade all the time at Kate Spade. Like, they were like, no, just like wear what you want to wear, and that just normally happens to be something cool because they're all designers and all people that live in New York and are just cool.
That's cool. How would you describe my style?
Oh, your
maybe
style.
Maybe not today, or just in general. You could do today.
I mean, you like sort of classic, vintagey, you know, 60s. I mean, that's kind of like, I feel like we're pretty similar on that.
Yeah. That was a great era.
It is.
I mean, maybe one day.
You've always been into shoes.
What?
I feel like you've always really liked shoes.
Man, I've gotten way more casual over the years. You know, I guess I got more minimal. But yeah, no, you're right. I used to be way more into, because now it's like I have my pair of like black loafers, brown loafers, my work and running shoes, and then like my casual tennis shoes. Yeah. You know, and then now it's like my practical work boots.
I know, everyone's so practical.
Yeah, so that part's nice, but maybe one day we'll be like Don Draper every time we leave the house.
That
man.
really is the goal.
Yeah, like if you haven't watched Mad Men might be, from a fashion and design standpoint.
Yeah, their costume designer won so many awards.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's fantastic.
See, why don't people, I mean, that's such a timeless look, that era. I don't know why people don't just dress like that all the time now.
Like
I know
suits all the time.
Yeah, I know it's
I
more
mean, you
effort.
can start a revolution.
I know, dude. We might have started a revolution here soon for a lot of reasons, and maybe we'll look good doing it, wearing suits and stuff. Okay, so what do you think about something like? You see the Harry Styles Vogue? Oh yeah. Where he had the leather jacket and the dress on. Mm-hmm. From a fashion standpoint, like what do you think of something like that? I will say I love Harry Styles. Like, I think he's so cool. Like, not even just like a, you know, I wasn't into One Direction or anything, so I'm not trying to be like fangirl or anything. Yeah. But his style is cool, and I really like Gucci. I like the things that are coming out of there right now. I feel like they're in an era where there's not a lot of excitement. I feel like Gucci in the past few years has brought a lot of really great things in fashion, and it's been fun to watch them. And so he's like the face of Gucci and is always like head to toe, and his outfits are amazing. I love it. So, I mean, yeah, you know, I don't think most guys would be into those outfits, but Harry Styles pulls them off. So, like, guys wearing dresses, is that like an okay thing? Is that just like a personal choice thing, or is that something like we need to avoid or encourage? Oh, you're asking me? Yeah, just your personal standpoint on it. Oh, I mean, because like I know my convictions on things, right? But also too, like, it's fashion, and you look at somewhere like Saudi Arabia, like men wear these linens that are practically dresses, and that's not masculine because that's how all the men dress there. Yeah. And over here, you know, men wear like a suit. Right. And so you say, okay, Harry Styles in a dress, that's feminine. But in Saudi Arabia, it's not, you know? Right. So, like, I mean, I get what you're saying. I definitely think one of the things that I like about fashion is that it definitely reflects the times that we're in. Like, you can look back in history and, you know, be like, oh my gosh, like, women, they're wearing corsets. Why were they wearing corsets? And go into all of that. And just, you can learn a lot about history just looking into what people wore. And so, as far as reflecting the times, I don't think it's going to be that unusual in the future if there's more like less of a defined line of what men and women wear. And some things it doesn't bother me as far as like, you know, why are we so constricted on certain things like that are, you know, like, why does it matter? Right. From a fitting standpoint, I would say dresses are fit to a woman's body, so they typically don't look that great on a guy. But then, you know, if you're going into the whole
like, how do you identify gender-wise? I mean, that's a whole other story. But, like, as a woman, I've worn guys' clothes, you know, like a cool jacket, like you pick up at a thrift store. Like, what, is there a difference if a woman is wearing a guy's clothes versus if a guy is wearing a woman's clothes? Like, does it bother you if women are wearing guys' clothes, or does it bother you more if guys are wearing women's clothes?
Like me personally? Or just in general, just asking in general?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I guess it all depends on like the intent behind it.
Yeah.
You know, because you see a lot of people. Like a lot of people, and they'll purpose to do it because like, oh, this is just some societal structure,
right?
And I want to like break down the norm. It's like I'm going to dress like in the other gender clothing, or like there's people like, okay, like a lesbian couple. I'll just go ahead and we'll go there. It's 2021. You see a lot more like, I mean, the way we're looking at sexuality, like you'll see more like lesbian couples. And I have like lesbian family members and stuff like that. And when you take on more masculine role in a lesbian couple, you'll wear like man clothing, you know, like the men's clothing, you know? So I think it depends like your intent behind it, where it's like, hey, I'm taking on the role of the man, so I'm going to dress in like man's clothing. And then some are like, oh, I like this jacket. It's, you know, like a vintage Levi's jean jacket. I'm just going to wear it. Yeah. Even if the men's like it still fits. So I guess it just kind of depends. There's a lot of other stuff too in between.
There's a lot of stuff.
So it just depends like your intent behind it. You know?
It's like, you know, how are you going to judge someone just because they're trying to, I guess, express themselves through clothes, which we all do. Like we all pick out our outfit every day or most days and just be like, this is what I want to tell the world. You know, this is who I don't want to say like the word identify. I feel like that word is overused, but just like, this is how I want to show myself. And how I want to present myself. And sometimes it can say a lot about you, and then other times, you know, you're just going to the grocery store in sweatpants. So
that's true. I think too, I mean, clothing's good.
Yeah.
But in terms of like being a walking billboard, I think we should be a lot more concerned with our like physique, our health.
Yeah.
Like, we're not a very healthy country.
I think, I guess with the clothes, like back to your question, I think there's other issues that I would be more focused on rather than if Harry Styles is wearing a dress on Vogue. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
It's an art form in the sense. So I think, you know, not being so serious with fashion is sometimes like art, where you just take it as it is and you can interpret how you want it.
Okay. One more fashion question for you. Why, when you see like the videos or the pictures of people on runways or red carpets or stuff like that, why is it always in clothes that like you never see people wearing out and about or on shelves and stuff?
Well, a lot of those things are couture pieces or pieces that are like out of the range that people around us, you know, like everyday people, they would never wear or never could afford. I mean, being in fashion, I see influencers where I'm like, oh, like I remember seeing that in last year's, you know, whatever show. So I definitely think working in fashion has made me more aware of like who is wearing what. And a lot of those couture pieces go to, you know, like royal people or very rich people in Asia, like people that, you know, we would just never see them wear it. But a lot of the clothes that you see is, in the sense, not making all of the money for the brand. Like you make all of your money on accessories or fragrances or all of those things. Like I'm just thinking Louis Vuitton or someone like that, where they might have a runway show and have a beautiful collection, but all of their money is coming from their bags. And so those shows and the clothes that they're presenting are really just a way for them to like sell bags, in the sense. Like it's just a lot of fashion is storytelling. So each season they can tell a new story, and that is everything from, you know, the hats that they're wearing to like the stage production of the show to the accessories to the wallet that someone that you or myself might actually see in real life.
That's good. So do you agree with there being 52 seasons in a year for fashion?
52 seasons?
Yeah, they say like there's 52 seasons because it's constantly changing so quickly. Like every week something new develops. So there's 52 seasons.
Well...
Or is that like, now you're over-exaggerating?
I mean, that's a little much. I will say, you know, there is definitely a difference between fast fashion, which is Zara, Forever 21, anything that's sort of cheap and quick and easy and fast. And then there's, you know, I don't want to say actual designers because those people are designers, but, you know, more slow fashion designers that are typically more expensive and they take a bit more a bit longer. And so they follow more of a traditional season schedule, which would be you're showing spring and fall and spring. And like, are you familiar with like a fashion schedule?
No.
Like, okay. So, and this is how it used to be. Everything is changing so much that, you know, I don't think it's going to be like this going forward, but there's Fashion Week. It's in September for the fall term, I guess.
Is that Paris Fashion Week, or is there like New York Fashion Week?
Yep,
or what?
there's a Fashion Week for all of those cities. So I'm trying to remember like who starts it off. I should know that, but either way, you would have New York Fashion Week, and it's like the first week of September, and then you would have London Fashion Week the next week. Like they don't overlap, so that all of the editors and stuff can go to each one.
Okay.
So in September, you'd be showing spring, summer. So it's
okay.
even though it's fall and kind of cold in New York at that time, you're showing what's going to be coming out.
Gotcha.
You know,
okay.
Like in 6 months, and then the buyers get ready to buy. You know, like they see a jacket and they're like, oh, we have to have that, and that's how that typically works. But now that we're getting into a much faster world with fast fashion, so the deal with that is that these fast fashion companies, try saying that
no
over
kidding.
and over.
It's a mouthful.
They would go to these shows and then go back to their factories and say, okay, cool, we just saw this really cool leather jacket. Let's knock it off and have it in stores in 2 weeks. And so then these designers are like, what are we going to do if everyone already has the jacket before it even comes out in the spring? And so that's really, I don't want to say messed up, but just changed a lot of the fashion schedule. And now things are much faster in the sense of
I never thought about that. Wow. Okay. But I mean, too, maybe, Forever 21 versus, Yves Saint Laurent. Like, there's a little bit more notoriety with YSL.
I mean, they're two different customers.
Yeah, so then you're thinking, like, they may knock something off, but it's like, a rapper's still going to go for Yves Saint Laurent,
That's true.
So I wonder if, like, the status symbol side of things, and, like, knowing, like, my mom's always said, which, don't wear, like, unbelievably nice clothes, but the whole thing, like, hey, you just spend the money up front.
Yeah, like buy quality
get something
pieces.
with quality, and then, like, okay, your polo button down lasts you 20 years. Yeah, you spent, nearly $100 on a button down, but it didn't last you 1 year. It lasted you 20 years. Like those pair of shoes, you just get them resold. They'll last you the rest of your life. I know it's $200 for dress shoes, but it'll last you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the downsides, or there's a few downsides about fashion, but definitely one of them is just the issue with sustainability and just realizing, within the last 50 years, we've just produced so many things. Like, we have no room for them. We're throwing, like, you would not even believe the amount of clothes that are being thrown away, just sent on barges in the middle of the ocean. And, like, there's documentaries. You should go and watch it. But
now, do they go to, like, third world countries that need clothes?
They do, but, like, a lot of these countries or the places that they're getting clothes, like, they don't need any more clothes. I mean, I'm sure there's people in the world that need clothes, but some of these places, like, it's like landfills of just clothes. Like, they're basically just living in them, and that they don't have food, but they have, a million shirts that got dropped off here by, some factory somewhere. And so that's the side of where I have an issue with the amount that we're producing. And not to put all of the blame on fast fashion, but a lot of that just came from, having $5 shirts that we're going to buy and throw away, and it's just not good. So I'm definitely buy secondhand or buy really good quality pieces that will last you, and it's the way to go.
That's good. So what is your end goal for fashion?
Oh my gosh.
Or just with work in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like if you would have asked me coming out of college, I would have said creative director, which is, the highest designer that you could be for a company. Just full creative control as far as marketing and the clothes, and, basically everywhere the customer would touch, you would have some say on that design.
Wow. Okay.
And then working in fashion, you get a really good sense of the type of life that you would lead. And it's not easy. Like, you work all the time, and it's very exciting and really cool. And I would love that opportunity, but I don't know if by the time I get to that age that will still be what I want. So I'm still going on that track. It'd be awesome to be a creative director for a company, but we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm just, after COVID, sort of wrecking my plans as far as staying at Tory for a long time. I've also really loved Tory Burch. Like, that was a company that I had looked up for so long. And so once I got there, I was just ready to be there for a long time and work my way up. And that was very short-lived. I was there for a little over 6 months. I loved it. Like, have nothing but good things to say about the company. But I definitely think after this pandemic, it sort of makes you reevaluate what you want and what is the state of New York going to look like in a few years. Like, we have no idea. So we will see. But I do think I'll always be doing something creative.
And do you want to stay in New York the whole time?
I kind of change back and forth. I love New York more than anything. Like, honestly, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I would stay there until I died. But I also really love Tennessee, so it'd be ideal if I could do both.
Yeah.
But I would come back to Tennessee or, Charleston.
Another part of the South.
Yeah. I do like the South, but, anywhere. If I got a job in Paris, it'd be fun to go to Paris, just anything.
Mm-hmm. What do you like most about living in the North? Being raised in the South. What's just one side of things that is just different, something you value now?
I can't speak for all of the North because I've really only been to New York. I've only spent time in New York City, and everyone is so diverse where you definitely feel like an individual. Like, here and where I grew up, I definitely felt like a lot of the people around me were very similar, and I was really similar to my friends and my family, which was great. But in New York, I can sort of be my own person, and it's like, oh, I'm the only Gabby that's just like me from Franklin, and I'm the only one in the city that has a background and history like me. But I will say I do miss, the good old Southern hospitality and talking to the grocery store, clerk for 15 minutes too long and all of that. But, I mean, it's just different. I don't think one's better than the other.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Didn't you have internships elsewhere in the North?
I did. I interned. Okay. Let's think. My first internship was with Camel and Beth, and she is a designer in Sarasota, Florida. She makes bridesmaid dresses and contemporary women's dresses. They're so cute, so you guys should look them up.
Did you go to Sarasota for it?
I did. For a whole summer. It was great.
Town. Yeah.
My aunt lives in St. Petersburg.
Oh, yeah. Not far.
So I lived with her and interned with Camel and Beth. And, with all of these internships, like, sometimes you just have to take things. It was unpaid, and I just, went down there and spent whatever, like 10 weeks showing up every day and cutting fabric. And at the time, it was just the designer, Cammie, and Nicole, which is a really sweet girl that, basically started the business with her and did operations. So it was just the three of us in her little studio, and it was like a block from the ocean, and it was just amazing and beautiful. And I knew nothing about fashion in high school, and definitely like going into college, I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I don't even, like, I want to get to this goal and do this thing, but I know nothing about it. And so that was really where I was able to be like, oh, like, this is what a designer does, and this is what samples look like. And, actually they're made in the United States. So that was really cool to learn, the difference of when things are made overseas versus here. And you don't get as much margins as far as, profit. Like, it's very expensive to be made here, but it's something that they really believed in. So that was cool to see that. And then the next summer, so going right before my senior year, I interned with Vineyard Vines, and I was a technical designer, which is, I kind of explain it. A designer would be sort of like an architect, and then a technical designer would be the engineer, as far as these are how it should be made, and measurements, spec it out, talk to the factories, making sure that the fit is right, and make sure that it is functional but also looks the way that the designer wants it to look. Lots of fittings on models. So that was very interesting to learn that side. But then I was like, I do not want to be a technical designer. I just don't care about teeny details. Yeah. But Vineyard Vines was amazing because it's a brand that a lot of people know in the South. And so I was really excited to intern with a well-known brand, and it's in Stamford, Connecticut. Oh, yeah? Which is right outside of Greenwich, Connecticut, which is like a, very preppy, like New England area. And I love a good preppy look. So it was fun to live a New England summer, and there was 22 interns from all over the country. So just like learning about them. And I lived with a girl that interned with me, and we lived in Westchester, New York, and Dobbs Ferry. which is just a small town like up the Hudson River, and it was so cool to see a part of New York that I would have never seen if I didn't room with her, and it was just a cool summer.
Man, that's cool.
And they have a great corporate office.
Vineyard Vines?
Yeah, like you guys should look it up on Google, just the Vineyard Vines corporate office. It's just amazing.
Like the way it looks physically?
Yeah, just like the building, like each floor and each level has a different theme. So there's like a Martha's Vineyard themed floor, and like, I don't know, like marketing team might be on there, and it's just, the building is just so pretty and nautical, and they have like shuffleboard and like draft cold brew, like it was just, I don't know, they had snacks. It was really fun, and that's it's overlooking all of these sailboats on the harbor. It's just beautiful.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so let's talk about you personally.
Okay.
So you're a Christian.
I am.
And we can kind of move out of fashion, but how do you, I guess, like, not necessarily reconcile the two, but how do you bring in like your, like who you are as a Christian, and then how you like immerse that in something like the fashion industry, which is, I mean, if you look at it surface level, I mean, it's just a fashion industry, you know? How do you make it Christian?
Yeah, I mean, fashion is very surface level, and that was something that or can be surface level. It's something that I sort of struggled with. A lot of my friends in college or high school actually went into ministry, or, you know, really had high hopes of being a missionary, and they had all of these very noble professions and aspirations, and I really struggled with, like, am I just being selfish? Am I just, you know, wanting to do fashion because it's glamorous and all of that? And yeah, I mean, for sure that was part of the answer, but also I just felt really called to that, and I felt like it was the best way that I could really use the skills that God had given me. And that sounds funny just saying, but it's true. I just had this very strong connection to the industry, and the older I got, the more I prayed about it, and just, you know, God can use you in absolutely any industry. And if there were no Christians in the fashion industry, then how would there ever be light there, or any industry? And so I think over time it's just, you know, like God might not care about, or he might, but he might not care about every bag that I make, but it's those personal connections that I'm making with the people that I work with, and really just the people in New York in general of, you know, I might be the only Christian in my office, like, and that might be the only person that they really get an interaction with. So, you know, I just think I'm more called to the city and the industry, and that's probably why. But, you know, I think God gives us creative gifts as well, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of room for the arts in Christianity sometimes, and maybe that's just how I grew up. There didn't seem to be a lot of crossover of, besides music, of like creative things and worship, and it's like, why can't art be a part of worship? Why can't fashion be a part of art? And, you know, all of those different dynamics. You know, God is in everything we do. We have to wear clothes.
Yeah, we sure do, man. Have you had any cool like success stories, or just like cool stories of how you've been able to, you know, share your faith or get to talk to people, make those connections you're talking about? Yeah,
I think just getting to know people in general and just building a friendship and a trust. There's been a few times where I've worked with someone and then have gotten to talk to them more and found out that they were a Christian, which I never would have found out. And it's just rare in New York meeting someone outside of church where they are a Christian. So it's really cool to sort of have that solidarity with them. But I will say I guess, environments that I've been in have been very professional and corporate, in the sense of like, there are things that you talk about at work and things that you don't talk about at work, like politics and faith. And it's not that I would ever get in trouble, but I feel like there's been less opportunity as far as things like that sort of just aren't brought up.
Yeah.
And not that I can't bring them up, but it just hasn't really felt right.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what are people like in fashion? And from what I know, I don't know a whole lot about fashion, but just like when you see like the creative fields in general, and from what I've seen and their outlooks on things, I mean, what are people's general, I guess, like their views on something like Christianity or something like just religion as a whole, or like that idea of structure? Because, I mean, those fields are so liberal. and the thing where everyone is like their own little creator in a way. Not that that's bad, but like from what I've seen, it's very like, there really are no parameters because it is art. How do they view something like the idea of like religion?
I mean, it's just person to person. Everyone comes from different backgrounds and has a different worldview as far as if they're open to that idea or feel like they are searching in that sense. So it's kind of hard to answer. I mean, definitely from the outside, the people that you think that you're imagining that work in fashion, they seem very eccentric and, just a certain type of person. And I would say, once you work in the industry, you realize like, most of these people are normal people, like they're artists and they're creative, but they're people that you would see and talk to and not really know what they do. So I think it's just different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just like there would be no way to tell, but I will say New Yorkers in a sense probably tend to be more on the side of not wanting a religion because of the structure that religion has had in those senses, if that makes...
Like in their own personal lives?
Yeah, like there just doesn't seem to be people that are looking for any sort of formal religion. Like they're looking for spirituality through other things. And so, I don't really consider... Like I wasn't drawn to Christianity because of the religion part. It was more of the spiritual part. And I think that they see Christianity or any other formal religion and they just see the structure and they run away. And they're like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Right. Now, do you think it's easier or harder to do ministry in a place where you are like kind of the only Christian these people may encounter? Opposed like Tennessee, like Franklin especially, where it's like you throw a rock and hit a Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, is it harder there or easier?
I would say that I enjoy it more because it seems like it's cool to tell someone about your faith when they genuinely have no idea. Like there's no preconceived notion. I mean, there might be a little bit, but here in Tennessee, it seems like if you grew up going to church and then you fell away from the faith, like you're like, I know what I need to know about it, and that's sort of that is that. But in New York, there really is an openness of because everyone is so different and so diverse. People really do want to hear your story and want to hear why you believe the things that you believe or why you do what you do or don't do what you do. And so there is a space of getting to know someone and, when you are a little bit different than maybe the people that you're around, like they are interested and it's easier to share my faith and share about the gospel and a more pure form rather than having all of these ideas of what it is.
Yeah, for sure. What's like the biggest distinction you've seen between people in New York that you've hung around and people in Nashville that you grew up around? Could be cultural, doesn't have to be like real philosophical.
Yeah. I don't want to use the word ambition because I don't think there's anything wrong with people like moving to Franklin and living there. No. I would do that in a heartbeat. But there's everyone that I'm around in New York, they've got such big dreams and honestly like will accomplish those things where it's like you are sitting in a bar or a restaurant, wherever, you end up talking to the person next to you and they're starting a startup and, in 10 years they're going to be whoever, some huge person. Like it just seems like everyone I meet is doing something like so revolutionary and innovative, and there really is, I mean, this sounds so cliche, but there really is an energy about New York as far as everyone who's there is on a mission and they're there to change the world, and it's really cool to just hear all of those stories. Not that you can't find that in good old Tennessee, but there's just a different, I don't know, a different spirit, ambition, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Nashville's not one of those cities that will just eat you alive.
Well, if you're trying to make it in music, it might.
That is. But like in general, I feel like New York, not just New York, there's other cities too.
Yeah.
But like compared to a Nashville. Now when I talk to people all over the country and like, they have their idea about Nashville, or I'll meet them, they're moving to Nashville and or something like music. Like, all right, dude, you're just flooding the market. Like everyone's there, it's moving for the same thing. Good luck.
Yeah.
But it seems like for everything else, you don't have to do as much to keep your head above water, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and that's not just Nashville, it's most cities.
Yeah,
is.
just like, you know, if you're with any city, if you're going into a creative industry, there's that, you know, you have to do everything in your power to fight and do what you can, odd jobs, you know, anything. And there's a lot of that in New York for sure. You know, I have a lot of friends that are in like musical theater and are trying to make it on Broadway. And I mean, those people are scrappy and they can find money and work anywhere. It's amazing. Like they are so innovative on like hustling. It's incredible, really. Yeah.
So what kind of stuff do they do? Someone trying to make it on Broadway?
A few of my friends, they nanny like a lot of the girls, which is great. There's some amazing stories that come from that. I have a few friends that, you know, there's a lot of different projects, typically pre-COVID, a lot of different projects going on. So you meet someone, they like might need a personal assistant, or, you know, if you have any, you just use all of your skills. Like if you know how to do graphic design, like you're helping someone with graphic design, or, you know, just honestly any job that you can get, you know, working in restaurants or anything like that. I've been really blessed in the sense that I haven't had to do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I won't have to, but yeah, I mean, it's a place to do it though. You know, everyone in New York is hustling, whether you're a CEO or someone that is trying to make it on Broadway.
I mean, that's got to be encouraging though.
Yeah, it is.
Think about everyone looking around. Everyone else is trying to do
all about productivity.
Survive too. Yeah.
Definitely. So it is definitely weird being back now, and people are working from home or not working, which is extremely unfortunate. But the sense of like the city's like doesn't really know what to do if no one's working. I mean, it's just a city that you live there to work. Everyone moves there to work. And yeah, I kind of miss that.
Really?
Yeah, being on the subway and everyone's dressed up and there's just this hustle and bustle of everything, and yeah, I miss it.
Man, hopefully we'll return to that. I keep hearing all the figures. Of course, you know, media likes to manipulate a lot of things, but you hear all these figures of all the people moving out of New York that, you know, they'll say, oh man, this month alone, you know, 40,000 people have left for good. And
they might like leave for good or for, you know, the time being, but you know, you think about leases and all of that, it's kind of easy to, you know, my lease ended in July and I was like, okay, don't have a job right now. I'm not going to re-sign my lease, but I can move home for a few months and then move back whenever things get better. And thankfully I moved back in the beginning of September, so I was only home for 1 month. But I think a lot of those numbers are people being like, okay, you know, I'm going to take a break and then come back once, which I think that they should stay. Not everyone has the luxury to stay because of finances, but if you can stay and like help the city get back to where it needs to be. But I think a lot of people will return, and I do think, you know, there's going to be a whole new generation of people graduating and or, you know, just moving there because apartments are going to be cheaper. There's going to have to be someone to fill these jobs when they eventually open.
Yeah.
So, you know, New York is a revolving door, which is what sometimes makes it so great. So, you know, if people leave, there'll be people moving back. It'll be fine. New York is resilient. It's survived so many things. Definitely the second wave, you know, shutdown is really, it's just knocking people down when they're already, you know, kicking them when they're already down. Yeah. I feel so horrible about all of these businesses that are going to close, but there will be new ones or they will reopen. Like, I don't think the city is dead as the news. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of these, you know, business owners fighting back. And they're just going, yeah, no, we've closed for, you know, 10 months.
Yeah.
Like we're not.
It's like
we're
they
done.
can't survive and they might not ever reopen, which is horrible. But New Yorkers are resilient. Like they will find somewhere else, or someone else will come in after all this is over and get a really great deal on rent.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I like to hear right there, man. Yeah, I know it sounds bad to say, but remember, like, you know, watching a bunch of stuff on 9/11. I do every year. Yeah. Not conspiracy stuff, Mary, but just history. For years I've done it. And like when you see all the archived footage, and when you see the stuff there and you hear the stories of people just even from around the country, like when it all happened, and you look like, man, it honestly, it sounds bad to say, but like 9/11 couldn't have happened to a better city. Because I remember seeing the way it was all like, all right,
Like
that's it. Like, let's go.
We
like,
gotta
we're
keep
done.
moving.
And it was just like, and they show the progress of just cleaning up ground zero, and how they did, and how they were just like back on their feet, and like a year later they're already, everything's cleared out and they're starting new construction. They're starting developing, new buildings around the area, and how they can move stuff into that, and like it's back up on its feet. And you see the stories of, the people just all coming together.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, these people. My mom and sister are very like pro North. They love the North. We all do. We love America. America's great all over. There's all these different cultures everywhere.
Of course.
Like, New York, not just New York, but the North. They're so efficient, and they're so practical. Not that emotions are bad, but it's just like, okay, we got to get it done. Let's get it done.
Like,
Let's just get it done.
No pity party. We're not dwelling.
Yeah,
We're
like,
just we
this
gotta
sucks,
do what we got to do.
Let's go. And so like, you think, oh man, like New York, they were about it, and a lot of the parts of the North are. They just find a way to get things done. And they do. I remember we went there. First place we went was Katz's Deli.
Oh yeah,
which is great.
I'll have what she's having.
Yeah. And,
have you seen that movie?
I've seen parts, bits and pieces, because I know the line.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm like the guy, like, you wait like 45 minutes to get up to the counter to order, and I order, and the guy's like, "So what, kid?" I was like, "So that's what I'm having." Like, I don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
But it's like their sense of humor. Like, all right, and I was like, already done. But like, they're not all about. Oh my gosh, no. So where are you guys from? You don't sound like you're from around
there's none of
here.
that. No.
Yeah.
There's not a need. It's like there's no fluff there. But
even they're not mean. They are nice people.
No,
locals are great.
They seem, they're a little would say rougher on the edges, a little harsh. At least that's how they come across to me. But they're so kind-hearted and like will help you. There's so many times in New York where like you just feel like flustered and like lost, or I don't even know, like so many stories like trying to get really weird objects down the subway, like trying to get luggage in the subway is just hard, and just times when you're in situations and you're like, oh my gosh, like only in New York would I be in this horrible situation, and people really do come to help you.
That's great.
And people are definitely like, it's an individualist city where like you're in these lanes and you stay in your lane and you've got these like tunnel vision, but people will step out of their way to make sure that people are okay. If someone falls in the subway tracks, there's 10 people running to help them.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Then you start doing that with gun control now, huh?
Well.
Yeah. I cannot wait to run for politics in New York someday.
Oh, in New York. I'm sure they will love your conservatism. Your conservatism.
Everybody should have a gun, and they should have it on them always. They'll be like, yeah, dude.
There's just...
Yeah, none of that.
I'm all for guns, but there's some people in New York that I really don't want to have a gun.
To have a gun?
There's some whack people in New York, and I love it. They make the city, but there's some characters.
Oh, man. Maybe it'll change over time.
No, we want them there.
You want the wackos there?
Yeah, it keeps the city interesting. Keeps New York weird.
Sounds like people really need guns then. Bunch of wackos. What other stuff? So you say you're an illustrator. You do that on the side.
I do.
You are an artistic gal.
Thank you.
So what all you like to do for art and illustration?
Yeah. So when I was in middle school, I was like, I like art. I want to do this for a living, but I don't really want to be an artist. So my parents not decided, but they were like, all right, let's look at careers that are creative. And for one day, I wanted to be an architect, and then I hate math. And someone told me that architects have a lot of math, so I was like, absolutely not. In the 8th grade, I was like, absolutely am I not doing that. Now I think I would probably like it.
Yeah.
And so freshman year of high school is sort of prime time Project Runway, which is like kind of embarrassing to say, but I would watch it all the time, and I was like, I love this. I am like so into what they're doing, and I want to do that for a living. So then I just started looking at schools, and I looked at schools in New York, Parsons and FIT, and I looked at SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. And by the time I graduated high school, my parents were basically like, we don't want you going to New York at 18, and we can't afford for you to go to SCAD unless you just take out loans, which I didn't want to do. So then I looked at just different state schools around and found Mississippi State. I have no idea how I found it or really why I went, except I really enjoyed the campus visit. It felt like home. There's something really special about Mississippi, and it's a very small town. The college feels really small, even though it's really big. And I wanted the college experience that all my friends were going to get. And so I sort of just, in a weird way, felt like God was leading me there. And I still don't really know why. I had a great time, got a great education, but it's just sort of random.
Man, and what do you do now with illustration? You just draw for fun or design?
So I draw for fun as far as fashion illustration, but outside of fashion, I like drawing houses, like people's houses for commission, or I've done a few wedding commissions, like just the bride and groom.
Wow. So you like take pictures or do you do it live, or how do you?
Ooh, live would be really cool.
That'd be quick.
Yeah, mainly from pictures.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
But it's something I definitely want to do more in the future. I haven't started a business or anything, but if I could get into stationaries or things like that, would be really interesting.
Man, it's crazy because it seems like stationaries as a whole are just going away.
I know, but it's just such a lost art.
I know, man.
Like, it'd be more for fun. I don't think I could, build a business model off of that, but...
Would you like to have your own business?
I would.
And would it be fashion-centered?
I really don't know. I definitely, the older I get, the more I'm drawn to, like, entrepreneurship and all of that. I think if, for some reason, the fashion industry was not here tomorrow, I would go to business school and do sort of a entrepreneur route. My dad is an entrepreneur. He had several businesses when I was growing up, so it's something that I was able to watch, and it really interests me. So I wouldn't be surprised if I ever owned my own business. I'm just not sure what that would be yet. And it'd be great if it was in fashion, but I don't know if it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just need a good idea. And
a good idea.
Good business partner.
Good business partner. Man, don't we all? There's definitely definitely a lot of voids, especially with COVID. Not just that. I mean,
it's hard to plan, and I just have literally no idea even what March looks like of this year.
Yeah, that's where I feel bad, man. I remember hearing stories of some of these local people who they bought places and we watched them fix it up, and do stuff, and they wait for the end of the fiscal year and then roll around to 2020 and they open their business after 2 months. If they made it, it was closed for good. They just poured years of planning and like permits and renovation and all the time and money, like time you can't get back.
Yeah. And
then it's just like that was probably it. Like they probably retired and wanted to open this little thing and like boom, done, gone.
Yeah.
Just like that.
And companies that have been here for 20 years and they just aren't going to make it, like you just can't. It's really sad.
Man.
But we're resilient. People are resilient. I have faith that this time will produce a lot of good things. Like there's people at home, they don't know what to do. There's a lot of problems that need to be solved, and it's just a perfect breeding ground of innovation for people to come up with new ideas, new businesses, new ways of working. I'd say most industries are going through a transformation as far as how all the processes work. So it'll be very interesting to see, fashion and other places, airlines, like everything is going to have to be changed, but hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
More efficient.
Very true.
Healthier.
Man. So someone's going to visit New York. Where's the one place they're there for a layover, they can have one meal in the city? Where do you send them?
One meal.
Where's your favorite place, or where's it go to? Just a good, reliable, it's always good.
That is such a hard choice.
Which places come to mind?
I love, one thing growing up in the area that I grew up in is there wasn't great Asian food, or if there was, I didn't know about it. But to go into Chinatown or to Flushing, Queens, and just go to like a mom and pop dumpling shop and just like, you don't know what you're ordering, but just ordering what's on the menu, and they just have such good food. Like Korean food, Korean barbecue, or dim sum, which is Chinese, like honestly anything. Pho. How
you spell it?
P-H-O.
P-H-O.
It's Vietnamese.
Pho. Okay.
It's like soup and noodles, things that I know that I can't get here. Yeah, is what I would tell you.
Asian food. Okay. That is great. If you could be any animal for a day, what would you be?
For a day?
Yeah, one day you can be any animal. You're not going to die either. You can just be an animal.
maybe a dolphin. Like, I like the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could go, I don't even know if there's dolphins in Australia, but you could go to like the Great Coral Reef.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are. That's a good question.
What would you be for a day?
Ooh, for one day, either a lion or a red-tailed hawk.
Of course.
One of the two.
Where, though?
Where would I be a lion?
Well, I mean where lions live, but where would you be a hawk?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. See, I follow a bunch of these accounts where they have different like birds, like falcons, and there's one in I think it's Providence, Rhode Island. There's like a building that has these peregrine falcons that like live up on top, and they're there, and they always reuse that nest and stuff. So there's like a whole account for them.
Oh my gosh!
And then there's a place in Boston. It's like Fenway Gardens or something like that. And there's a couple photographers I follow, and there's a bunch of hawks that hang out there. So I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be cool to be in a city because you look at a bird's eye view of the city, and you have all these little parks that always feel like you're escaping the city, and you have the nature in the parks. But then also, like in Memphis one time when I worked at a garden, my boss showed me a video he took one day coming into work because he knew I loved hawks. And there were these 2 hawks in a tree on campus, and they had rats that were back behind the cafeteria that they caught rats. So it's like, it sounds gross, but like you're keeping the city clean.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but then like, man, just being out in the open.
There is this, I think it's Planet Earth, an episode about different wildlife in New York. And there's this whole like ecosystem that you have no idea about. And this one particular segment is about, I don't know if they're falcons or like what type of, predatory bird, but they go after the pigeons.
Oh, wow.
And it shows them like dive bombing down.
Are they like Cooper's hawks? Well, they could be like a falcon. Falcons do that little dive bomb down.
Have you ever seen Stuart Little? I always think of like that bird, that like mean bird that was after them. I think it's one of those.
Yeah. He was a good guy.
It's so cool. Like you would have no idea all this, the different weird things going on, but they're like on tall buildings, like looking, and then they just like dive down into the Hudson and catch, I guess, a pigeon. I don't know what they're going after. But and then there's bees. Like they have many beehives on the top of buildings in New York.
Really? That's awesome.
And that's kind of a goal. Like I've always kind of wanted to keep bees, but I thought it would be in Tennessee or somewhere. But I was like, I could be a beekeeper in New York. How cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Man, that's a good one. Okay. Let me think. What's any good book recommendations you have for listeners as we sign off? Or documentaries? Or movies?
Movies?
But it's movies. any books or documentaries?
Oh my gosh, I've read so many good books this year. That was my New Year's resolution for 2020 was to read more.
How many books did you read the entire year?
I honestly haven't even counted. But the first book, I'll tell you, the first book I read in 2020 was a biography about Katharine Graham. I guess an autobiography, which is I believe she was the editor of The Post during the Watergate scandal.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen that movie, The Post?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's about her.
Okay.
That's Katharine Graham.
Gotcha. But you have seen the movie?
I have seen the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, with Meryl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really great.
Okay.
It's a lengthy book, but it's just all about her life. She was very interesting. Her father, worked at the Post before she did, and she was sort of brought up in that environment. And then you get a little bit more information about the Watergate scandal and like all of that from her point of view, which was very interesting. And then over the summer when I was having my quarter life crisis, when I lost my job, had a lot of free time to think. And I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which is a book that everyone should read. It's
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's
Viktor Frankl?
Search for Meaning.
Okay.
Viktor Frankl. It's a very well-known book. It's always on lists of like, you should read this before you die. He was in the Holocaust and survived. And it's sort of, he dissects and psychoanalyzes why some people just didn't make it. Obviously people were killed, but some people just went crazy and others sort of kept their sanity, and it was like, why? Yeah. And so he sort of goes through that, and it's very interesting. And it's a short book, but it's one of those where it's like each sentence is so profound, and you're like, okay, like let's read that again.
That's
but
great.
Highly recommend.
Okay, any other books? Any documentaries besides Out of Shadows that people need to watch?
Oh my gosh. Not to talk about New York again, but also it's the best. There's a documentary about New York on Amazon Prime, and it just starts from the beginning of time, like, you know, when the settlers came in. It's colonized by the Dutch up to when the documentary was made, I guess like either the 90s or early 2000s. But it's so interesting to see how many different cultures have lived there, and like the different people that have settled there, whether it's like the Irish coming over, the Italians coming over. Like, it started off as the Dutch. Okay, so a lot of colonists coming over, you know, were trying to move here for religious freedom, but the Dutch were moving over here to make money. Like, that is what they were about. They came over and set up in New York and started doing lumber and like all of these different, you know, capitalism, like everything.
And they have like fur trades and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. And so it's very interesting to think that that spirit of New York has literally always been there. And now it's, you know, the financial capital of our nation and like, you know, kind of the world. And it's cool whenever they were talking about that from the very start, that was the spirit of New York.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty fitting.
And my apartment is in there. I was watching it, and there's a shot of my apartment from the 1940s. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's cool.
It's really cool.
The good old days. Would you go back to the 40s? If you could? Oh, dude, hold on.
What?
If you could live in any time period in history, which one would you live in? You have two. You can pick two.
Okay, like modern or, I mean, there's so many.
You mean modern like post-20s, or you mean like modern like today?
I guess like we're not talking about like, you know, BC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, no.
Let's
I mean,
say
unless
like
you
the
want.
1900s. Okay, for fashion, the 60s. I love the 60s. Mid-century modern anything, like dreams.
Oh, be still my heart.
I know. And then as far as, I think we were talking about this, like on Mad Men, they really show how horrible life was for women in that time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've always said, oh, the 50s, I want to go live in that time, or, you know, like the 1920s. But honestly, I think being a woman who's lived in 2020, I would say absolutely not, because I like to be able to vote and have a job and open a bank account and all of that good stuff.
Man, yeah, that's a good era. Yeah, Mad Men captured that well. I had no idea any of that was
so we'll say
going
60s.
on. 60s?
What about you?
Dude.
But like early 60s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, right there with you. Early 60s. I think Renaissance, man. Renaissance would be a great time. I've always just loved the Renaissance. And like when I've studied art and Renaissance art, just how religious, but like how pretty. Because like a lot of times, you know, you look at religion as a whole, or the way people view religion, and it just seems so boring, and people are weird, and stuff's like mundane and monotonous. But you're looking at that, and like all the colors and like the composition of the pieces.
It is really beautiful.
And yeah, just like the style of like the Renaissance and all the stuff that was going on. It seemed like everybody was creative. But it's not weird. I remember we had a sermon series at church, and it was about the life of David. And it was like, it was warrior, artist, I don't know if it was poet, and then it was like king. There's like 4 attributes and roles that David played in the Bible. But it was kind of cool because like he was a king, but he's also like a warrior who like led an army. So like this is like the alpha man, like
Renaissance
this dude,
man.
He really is. But at the same time, dude's playing a harp and like writing hymns and poems.
Yes, I feel like we've lost a lot of that.
Yeah,
like it seems like with masculinity, there's no room for creativity or art. At least like in the South, it's like you have to be a warrior, but you can't like music or anything like that.
And it's like other parts of the country I've been to, it's like the opposite. Like, why do you have to be such like...
Or Europe.
Yeah, and like they want like a bunch of like the beta male idea. And like if you ever read Wild at Heart, which I think was one of the greatest books ever, like it talked like it's not wrong for like boys that want to go out there and like, you know, get grass stains in their jeans.
No,
you know, it's like that was like the way God made him. It's like David, flawed individual, of course, you know, not very, you know, I don't know, in times not very humble or loyal or stuff, but you know, dude was a warrior and he was an artist. And so part of this, like the Renaissance, seemed like everyone was like embracing the idea of like, all right, like it's okay to challenge things and question and grow, and all the different like media. Because you think, it was all art. It's like, it was more than that. It was like literature. It was architecture. Talk about like Michelangelo did it all. Like we studied him. I studied him art class, architecture class, like different books, like different spiritual books and sermons. Like the dude's like has his fingers in everything. What
That's
a
the
man.
goal.
What a man. And he probably was 6'5" and ripped.
Oh my
I
god,
bet,
of course.
I bet it was just a man.
Was he ready to just paint himself like that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. All of his guys were in great shape.
I mean, you would
Look at
have to
his
be if
statues
you're
and
like
stuff.
painting, a ceiling, and I feel like that's like hard work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So yeah, Renaissance I think would be great. 60s, yeah, early 60s. Dude, for some reason, I don't know why, the last like 2 months, I've been wanting to go back to like 1947 and just like live from there. Because it's like post World War II.
Mm-hmm. But why 47?
I don't know, because like 45, we're getting out of World War II. 46 is kind of like, oh, we're transitioning, stuff's still kind of rough. People are still grieving.
Mm-hmm.
But like 47, we've kind of like gotten back into things. We're not really in the Cold War yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even in Korea yet. The Red Scare, space, all that's like yet to come. And like now that we know how it ends, it's like, yeah, I'd like to live through it. Probably at the time, like doing, duck and cover and stuff probably wasn't a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that
sounds terrifying me. But not knowing it now, it's like, oh, all the Russians did was launch a monkey into space. Like, that'd be a fun time to be alive. And then you think like all the cultural stuff that we've lost.
Mm-hmm. I
know we don't have time to get into politics.
Oh.
But like, I remember watching a documentary called Uncle Tom. It's a great documentary if no one's seen it. And it was talking about Black America, and they were pretty much, this wasn't like making the case for the whole documentary, but at one point they're talking about how Black America is in a worse position now than they were like pre-civil rights, the civil rights movement, because there were like certain civil liberties that the civil rights gained them, but through that became a whole new world of like government overreach and like incentivizing certain things for Black America that like during the Great Depression, everyone else is looking for jobs. How do they provide for their family? They're moving all around. Black America had the highest marriage rate. They were like spitting out marriages, man, because they really, like, this is the time that you really had to value family. And like Black pastors talked about how communal like Black America is. Black people are very communal, which is why they like, they can grieve as a community and stuff. And so you're seeing that like in the 40s and 30s, like late 30s and then post-depression, were like they were all in like the way that they valued family and marriage and stuff. They were, I'm talking like multiple times the rate of all other ethnicities. So then you think about like the way you look at like family and those dynamics and like the way all the different cultures, had come over to New York for the Industrial Revolution, like post that, like you had all these different cultures. So I think like 47 was a time where we hadn't lost all that yet, and it wasn't as tense, and everyone was just like helping each other, and they loved America, but they didn't think it was perfect, but it was a good opportunity. You could make something out of it, and I don't know. I look at that like, man, take me back to 47. let me live from there.
What city would you want to live in 47?
New York for 47. And then I would do California for the 60s, early 60s, before it got all Woodstock. And then you go back to New York. Then I think Chicago for the 90s. That'd be another one. 90s are good. Have you watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan?
Yeah.
Like, dude, that's 90s cool. Chicago with the Bulls. Oh, like crime wasn't as bad as it is now, but crime in New York is bad. So you don't want to be in New York in the 90s.
My parents still are like, you're going to Brooklyn? And I'm
yeah.
like, yeah, Brooklyn is not the same as it was
30
in the 90s.
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like LA, that was kind of, that could be rough in the 90s.
It could be
Rodney
Compton.
King stuff, yeah. But you have Chicago, man. You have Michael Jordan riding around in his whatever car, Ferrari, Porsche, Corvette.
Dream team, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Smoking a cigar.
Your favorite?
Yeah. Why do we have a cigar sitting out here?
I don't
Warm
know,
you up.
man.
But I don't know. What city would you live in the 60s?
Oh,
New York?
I mean, I feel like I'm so biased against New York, or for New York. But it would be cool to live in London in the 60s. They had some very interesting things coming out of there.
It sounds like Austin Powers.
They had a cool... Yeah, you're right. But I just think like all the music coming out of there at that time was really cool. And like Twiggy, she's a big model that came out of New York London.
Twiggy?
Twiggy.
I don't know. Okay.
She is, just a famous model. And I think of shift dresses and fun patterns, all the good stuff.
London, that'd be a good one. Are you a Princess Diana fan?
Lady Di. Have you seen Diana in her own words?
Yes, I have. Been a couple years now.
It's good.
So I need to rewatch it. But yes.
Yeah.
You like it?
I do. She actually, after watching that documentary and then recently The Crown, which is amazing if you haven't watched it, her fashion has been such, headlines, and that's a lot of what she was known for besides her, activism and stuff. So definitely, as someone who enjoys fashion, just seeing what she wore and, why she wore certain things or why the royals wear certain things when they go out, it's all on purpose and has a very specific meaning. So it's very interesting to learn about.
So that's Diana in her own words?
Yeah. That's just sort of everything. Yeah. But yeah, Diana in her own words is just sad. Like, you just hear about the life that she was living. And it's really the only time I feel like she had a voice during that time of being in the royal family. They just plucked her up. Like, she was just so young.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's crazy because, she died in 97. Mm-hmm. But then when I saw the pictures of her wedding, or even like when they did the television footage, it's like the 70s. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a second. She was there for like 25 18, years or something. 19, yeah. Before she was killed. Mm-hmm. However she died. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, she's great. I mean, everyone loves her.
Yeah. Like the people's princess. Yeah. I never knew either that she was the most. I think now she's technically the most photographed person of all time.
Oh, really?
But at the time, she was the most photographed person of the 20th century.
That's insane.
Because, of course, cameras were developed late 1800s. And
she just never got to live a life. I mean, I just hope that she had happy moments, because it just seems like in The Crown and in the documentary, like, she just had so much hardship.
Yeah. I think I could be way off on this. I think her funeral had over like 2 billion people watching or something insane.
Like, my parents watched it.
That's
they
crazy.
Talk about that.
That's when I realized, okay, this woman's got to be big. Because I remember looking at Michael Jackson's funeral, and I think his had like 35 million. So you're doing the math, like, wait, Michael Jackson was a huge death of our life.
Right.
That was huge for people, and he had only like 1% to 2% of the viewers that watched Diana's funeral, and you're like, that's insane. Was she that big of a person? I never knew anything about her.
Well, I mean, we were like one.
I was one when she died. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So we obviously wouldn't have known.
You were
but
reading
also,
the news at 1.
Before, it wasn't until after watching The Crown, I feel like I know everything about the royals, which isn't true. But after Elizabeth comes into power, becomes the queen, it wasn't until, halfway through her reign where they were like, oh, we're actually going to show photographs and like videos, because there weren't any before her. But they're going to like open a window on what the royal family was like. I mean, before then, like, they were so private, like more private than they were now. So I feel like once Diana came, it was having someone that was a commoner, going in and seeing what it was like for a commoner to be in the royal family. It just shed more of a light on what the family was like, and I think it just fascinated people.
That's great. Any final advice to leave listeners with on your way out? Any good quotes? Any good advice? Good life lessons? Moral of the story?
I'll tell you what my mom tells me.
Okay.
To leave people better than how you found them.
To leave people better than how you found them. That's good. That's good. Good one to end it on. Mary Gabrielle Martinez, thank you for bracing the cold.
Of course.
And
thanks for having me.
Coming out here for an hour, 13 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. You haven't even touched your drink. You must be really cold.
It is cold.
Yeah. So we're out here at Southern Trey Steakhouse. I think it's the name of this
Columbia,
place.
Tennessee.
Oh, in historic.
The second greatest town in Tennessee. Franklin's the first.
Art is so subjective. Yeah. Yeah, Mary, thank you for coming on. Glad to finally have you on. I know all about fashion now.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And feel convicted for my outfit.
Yeah, you need to get a better check on that.
Can't wait to have a secretary pick up my outfits for me.
Oh my gosh, Peggy. Poor Peggy Olson.
Oh,
okay,
man.
y'all need to watch Mad Men.
Yeah, Mad Men's great. Okay, Mary, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course, thank you.
Do you want to tell the people see you on the other side, or do you want me?
See you on the other side.